trauma that I'm facing, and I don't know where to search, where to go. You think that child is going to excel in school?
No.
Of course not. So I think this is why the American people, and certainly the people of Massachusetts, and people like yourself, are rightfully looking at this and saying, is this good policy? Is it really good policy? Are we really doing the right thing for the taxpayers that we represent, that are counting on us to make sure their kids have programs in schools and have things, and still balancing compassion where we need to do that?
It's right that we do things from the heart, but it's also right that we do things to protect the core mission and to treat it like a business. I mean, if you had a business, you wouldn't give away all your assets in the process of trying to do something good for someone. You'd protect the assets, and then with the excess and things you're able to generate from it, those funds then go to support other missions that are just as important.
Right, and we know that the numbers have doubled. We know that the report just came out yesterday that the federal facility in New Mexico has just been quarantined. 300 children with chickenpox, 80 cases of tuberculosis. So that's one facility where all these unaccompanied children are coming. And look, don't get me wrong. You got sick kids here that are already here. We need to take care of their illnesses and make sure we don't send them back when we know that they're already sick. We have to take care of that. I get that. What we need to do is we need to secure these borders like the sheriffs across this country have been talking about. We've been talking about it and talking about it. Meet with the Israelis, lay it out, learn from them. Why reinvent the wheel? Take their best technologies and protect the people of our country. I mean, we have an obligation to do that for their health and their public safety.
That's an incredible thought that you're leaving us with on that.
It was a long one, too. I apologize for that.
That's okay.
There's a lot of things.
We like your long answers because, you know, you've put so much time into it, and you have so much experience. And I think that's why you're invited here today, to share that experience with us and give us some insight as to, for example, what we're going to do with all these kids if they end up at Westover and down at the Cape at Otis. You know, we're led to believe it's a short period of time they're going to be there, but I think you know there's long-term consequences, and I appreciate you sharing with the viewing public in particular what some of those long-term consequences can be and how we need to really lay down a plan in order to effectuate what we're going to do with these folks that are coming.
And I think the legislators in that meeting, excuse me for adding this, but they learned from the the administration, Health and Human Services Secretary, when I think all the legislators believed that this 30 to 45 day stay was going to be a turnaround, they're going back. We're shocked when the Health and Human Services person said, oh, no, after 45 days, the federal government can renew our contract for another 30 to 40, or 3 or 4 months or whatever it was. But most of these kids are going to be sent to friends or distant relatives that are here either legally or illegally.
A lot to think about, isn't it?
It sure is, a lot to do.
Well, one of the other areas I want to touch on as well is we recently just did a very large substance abuse recovery piece in the legislature, whereby which we've realized the epidemic and scourge of many high-potency drugs, heroin and others. For my private sector business, I started off the new year this year bearing at least a half a dozen young people and others who were affected by that epidemic. And almost on cue, the Senate President had started a committee to take a look at how Section 35 services are delivered here in the Commonwealth, the commitment process. And I had a constituent who lived right next door to us when we raised our family on the lake in Rentham. And actually, I was shocked to find that their kid, who had a very promising athletic career, academics going well, and all those things, had fallen prey to alcohol first, had gone into a treatment program, and they thought he'd come home with that addressed, to find out that while he was in that treatment program, he'd gotten into some harder things and now had a heroin addiction. And they didn't know where to turn. So that's how, all of a sudden, that's on my plate, and I had no idea what kind of advice to give them because I'd never had any experience with it. And I had the privilege to serve on this Section 35 committee. And between the chairwoman, Jen Flanagan from Fitchburg, and others, we went around the Commonwealth listening to people's stories. We listened to not only addicts, but recovering addicts, and also the people that care for them, and started to realize we really have a problem here in the Commonwealth.
Yeah, as you say, Senator, and I commend you for your work on this. It is an epidemic in our country. Frankly, it's actually feeding the poverty and things that are going on in Central America because of our insatiable appetite for drugs in the United States. That's something we really have to tackle. But importantly, with your legislation and what you all are proposing, I think it's long overdue. We know that in our prisons, about 80% of the people who are in there for drug-related issues.
Wow.
And as you say, from the heartbreak for families who have children who are doing well in school, who happen to run into somebody along the way who at the wrong time tells them, hey, try this marijuana or try this or try that. And they do, and the next thing they know, and we know marijuana is the gateway drug.
So many people keep saying it's not a gateway drug.
Of course they do. It's stronger than it ever was.
Even my own children, who have friends, obviously, that are in that 21 to 25 age group, have argued, Dad, it's not as bad as alcohol, And I'm like, Chase, it's a gateway drug.
Well, I always ask the question when I was asked by the press about this, well, why, people drink alcohol, why would we want to introduce any other mind-altering substance to anyone?
It's enough of a problem without any other
right,
mind-altering substances.
And tell me, just explain to me one benefit that they're going to get that's a healthy benefit for them by using some new mind-altering drug that we make available. Look, we take prisoners to schools across this county, and we have them talk to the school kids, and we bring them into our facility through a program called Project SLAM, Students Learning a Message. And these kids sit in there, and the inmates tell them, hey, listen, I started out just like you, right? Just like you did in school, and I didn't pay attention much in class. Some of you guys probably don't do that, but I got involved in marijuana. No big deal. Well, you know what? There's a guy in this place that won't tell you that's here.
That's where it started.
That's where it started, and that was the gateway. And when it wasn't strong enough anymore for them, they went to a higher potency of a different type of drug. We have the issues of kids today. We preach to parents, get rid of your prescription drugs you're not using, because there are these things called pill parties where they actually, if you can believe this, kids will come to a party, they'll take medications out of their parents' medicine cabinets, they'll pour all of them into a bowl, having no clue what's in there, and they start taking these pills.
Wow.
Oh yeah, listen, when we have a mindset of children that feel it's okay to just grab drugs and throw them in a thing and take them for whatever reasons they think it's okay,
we have a lot of work to do.
We have a serious problem.
We really do.
And we need to educate our children. We need, frankly, as a country, we need to be more accountable to our kids. We need to make sure that we're there for them so that they understand we recognize their achievements, that we're there to talk to them when they're running into maybe conflicts in school or hardships or somebody's bullying them, to sit with them and talk to them. How do you deal with a situation like that? But today, I often say, how many furniture stores are selling dining room tables anymore? Who uses them? Unfortunately and sadly, that's where you learned. I had 12 brothers and sisters. And if
Did you really?
Yeah, I did.
Where do you fall in the lineup?
Right in the middle, mediator, negotiator. I always got the last ginger snap in the cookie jar because of my position.
Well, I'm the youngest, and I was a mediator and negotiator.
Yeah, well, you had to be, right? Because you had all the others trying to manipulate.
That's
you.
right.
But no, but you grew up in my case, I grew up in a small society, and I learned early. And when I sat at the dining room table with my mom and dad and my brothers and sisters, we always would talk about different things going on. And granted, there were probably 8, 9 conversations going on at once, but at some point, if somebody was having an issue, one of my brothers would say, well, go talk to the principal, or if somebody's picking on you, my older brother would always say, I'll take care of him. But that's not the way to handle it, right? But mom and dad would talk to us about it. But today, kids don't have that, and that's why we see the emergence of gangs.
Breakdown of the nuclear home certainly is a big influence in that. And I can remember coming from the kind of loving environment that apparently you grew up in as well, and it somewhat is an eye-opener. You are somewhat naive when you get introduced, and I know a lot of my friends that in the legislature in particular that maybe didn't have that same kind of a household, but have gotten to where they got as leaders by understanding some of those other complexities, help to point out some of the things that are missing along the way. And nothing can replace a loving home with loving parents that raise you in some sort of beliefs and tradition and spirit that hopefully builds a life of quality.
Yeah.
But when that is missing, you can't replace it totally by legislation and other programs. But certainly in light of those family environments not being recreated, we certainly as a society, through that compassionate program you're talking about, need to find ways to deal with it. And I think that the balance somewhere in there is what you and I are both seeking. Yeah,
and we as a nation, I agree with you, and we as a nation, as parents, as people who can guide children, we know what the problem is in our country. We know why these failures are taking place. We know why kids are joining gangs, because they don't have that nuclear family that they used to have. The question that I think is begged to all of us because we're all busy. You're busy in your job. We know what it's like being in political life. You've got to be here at night.
Yeah.
You've got to be there. You're at maybe having
You
lunch.
and I both obviously thrive on it, though. I'm not
We
sure
do.
what's wrong with us.
But no, we do, and I think that there's a reason why we have these positions and do it, because not everybody wants it or believes that that's the route that they can make a difference. But you do a great job at it, and I think that for us, we see it as a way to incrementally, hopefully, while we have the privilege of serving, to make our country a better place, our state a better place, our communities a better place. But frankly, it takes a lot of our time. I'm sure when you go to a restaurant, I remember when I was a city councilor and I'd take my kids for breakfast
Oh, there's
on a
no
Sunday,
private time.
and I'd be talking to them and someone would come over to say hello. And I could see the disappointment in their eyes, and so I try to make special time. But that told me about the importance of why they need, you can't maybe balance it as well as you want, but you certainly get the perspective you need to. And I think what we need to understand, and I think we do in this country, it is that we need to be there more. We need to invest more in our children. We have to balance our time better. And the question then becomes, if we know what the problem is, we know what the solution is, the most important question of all is, do we have the will? Do we have the will and the commitment to turn this country around for our kids in a way that we can change our own behaviors to try to give them the guidance that they need?
And I think that is one of the frustrating points, both in your job and legislators. We're trying to grapple with what it is we can give to someone else so they have those tools to be successful.
And you point out an excellent point.
Yeah.
We can't legislate family values.
No.
So we need to try to, Hillary Clinton said something I thought that was I think, pretty
Was
important.
this down in Seekonk the other day?
Yeah, no, I didn't know she was here.
What is she doing up here?
I didn't know she was here.
She was up in Seekonk at one of the stores, Lowe's, or one of them, signing her books.
Oh, really? I didn't know about
Yeah,
that.
it was in the paper yesterday. I didn't
oh,
read the whole article.
Yeah, I didn't know that. But she said a while back when President Clinton was serving, she said, we are a village. We have to. We're a village, and we have to act as a village. If the family unit's not there, we have to go to the next tier, and that's the people of the village, the adults of the village coming together, village, community, neighborhood coming together. And we knew that when we were growing up, we had neighbors, right? We knew who the neighbors were, right? When your mother was out shopping, and my mother would be for a while on grocery day, but if you ran through the neighbor's flower bed, I did. My brothers did that a lot.
I always did.
Yeah. But we did something, something that we weren't supposed to do. You knew, right, that your mother and father were going to find out about it.
Absolutely.
Right, and that was the second nuclear family that you had.
And that was a great influence in your
and
life.
that's gone.
We're down to less than a minute at this point, Sheriff, and I just want to say I just drew a parallel between our lives a little bit. I had the privilege of growing up in a family business that served people when they lost someone in their lives, and their life turned to a negative point where they sunk to a very low level.
Sure.
The people you serve in that population also have sunk to a very low level, and I think the desire that as professionals we both share in that is to have the tools that we can give to other people so that they can rise up above it, and at some point after you think they've healed enough, or healed enough in a certain sense, you have the privilege of turning back to life and living again. And I think that's
Exactly.
both of our sincerest hopes
Yes.
for the populations we serve.
And I commend you.'re doing a great job in making those things happen. And I thank you for your work in the legislature for the people of this county and all the people you represent.
Well,
in your
I
district.
thank you for turning people's lives around and making
Yeah.
a difference too, each and every day. And I really appreciate you taking the time to come up from the South Coast to be with me here in North Attleboro this morning.
My
And,
privilege.
You're giving the people that I serve a gift with your knowledge. You're giving me a gift with your knowledge and how you've dealt with many of the same problems and complexities that I have to wrestle with each day. And it's been an honor having you on this show.
It's
And
great
I look
being a
forward to
partner with
joining
you
you
in
again
government.
at some point.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Senator.
you very much.
Great. Keep up the good
Yeah,
work.
God bless
Great
you. Take
job.
care. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today for this segment. And Noah will be back. And again, I thank you very much for the opportunity to serve you here in the Norfolk, Bristol, and Middlesex Senate District. It's my privilege, it's my honor, and it certainly brings me pleasure to accumulate your stories and your tools that you help supply me with so that I can serve you better in my everyday life. Thank you.